Joining me now is MSNBC national security and intelligence analyst and former CIA senior intelligence officer, Mark Polymeropoulos. Hey, Mark, my friend, good to see you. So what are the consequences of revoking all these clearances?
In the case of former President Biden or perhaps Jake Sullivan and others, this is just kind of the performative theater, the red meat that Trump is throwing at his base. But what concerns me is some of the others, frankly, when you talk about some attorneys, and truth be told, Mark Zaid is someone, a national security attorney in Washington. He's represented me in a case where I was actually fighting for health care against the CIA. So, Mark Zaid is someone who has worked on behalf of Republican and Democratic clients. He's battled against government malfeasance. His security clearance is really important, and he has a lot of actually clients in the MAGA world. So this is almost an own goal. And it just shows this is kind of petty and vindictive because Mark ultimately had represented and is currently doing so FBI agents who might be subject of a purge. But this is petty, vindictive. It's beneath the office of the presidency. I think President Trump said that he wouldn't do this. I don't think anyone believed him. And of course, he is going forward now with it.
But, the thing that bothers me in particular, look at someone like Antony Blinken. What if Marco Rubio wants to call him up and say, hey, this is the situation we're dealing with here. What do you think? I mean, Antony Blinken won't be up to speed on what's happening.
Right. He won't have a security clearance. And apparently part of these executive orders, he also can't go into, classified spaces as well. So it's also bizarre in that notion. I mean, a lot of times when you have administrations moving from one group to a next, you will have senior officials call on their predecessors. In this case, certainly that won't happen. I don't know if it would have happened anyhow, because I think Marco Rubio would not like to face the wrath of Donald Trump if he ever did call Antony Blinken. But again, petty, vindictive, unnecessary, and it's really has nothing to do with kind of safeguarding the American people.
So in that same interview we're referencing, President Trump revealed that he spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump was pretty tight-lipped on how many times they've spoken, saying he'd, quote, better not say. Why the secrecy, Mark?
Yeah, it's a little strange. I mean, this is obviously President Trump's style. Very often when we see, the presidents talk with foreign leaders, we'll also get a readout from the White House as well. I think when it comes to the Ukraine war, there's a lot of uncertainty. I was in Europe a couple of weeks ago, and everyone is trying to assess what the policies of this administration will be, and no one can really figure this out. There's a very capable emissary in General Kellogg who's set to kind of, or has already taken helm of the Ukraine file, but we don't know what kind of peace plan they're going to put forward. Are we going to sell the Ukrainians down the river? Do we give the Ukrainians some kind of security guarantees? What about Europe? All of this is murky, and this kind of just loose talk of we're going to end the war in a matter of days. Of course, it hasn't happened. But we don't have any details. And so I think a lot will come in the next couple of days. We have the Munich Security Conference coming up. I think J.D. Vance is going to meet with President Zelensky. So we should hear more about this peace plan shortly.
He also mentioned that he would like a deal done with Iran on non-nuclear, but he was reluctant to give any details. What's the likelihood of a potential deal with Iran?
Well, I think one of the things that was always a big question is, would the U.S. support a military strike on the Iranian nuclear program in conjunction with the Israelis? Of course, that seemed to fly in the face of Trump running on this anti-war platform, and now he's talking about a deal. Of course, don't forget, deals were something that the Trump administration kind of was very critical of President Biden. How does this even kind of gel with what the Israelis want to see, which I think is a strike on the Iranian nuclear program? And so ultimately, again, these are just no details. This is almost, second or third grader talk. We want to do this. We want to do that. No details right now. Iran is going to be an enormous challenge for the Trump administration. Their nuclear program is certainly on the verge of a big breakthrough. A deal, a military strike, a combination of more coercive diplomacy with maximum pressure and sanctions. We just don't know now.
Let me ask you quickly, as we look at security concerns, sending names of CIA recent hires in an unclassified email. One former agency officer said this is a counterintelligence disaster, and Senator Mark Warner himself called it a disastrous national security development. What do you call it, Mark, and what kind of threats could these people be facing?
Well, to me, again, if these reports are true, we're exposing basically the next generation of undercover CIA officers. If these were sent down in an unsecured fashion to this, task force, this Office of Management and Budget or Elon Musk group, Even if they talk about how they just sent the names of a first name and a last initial, it's not difficult for an adversary to find out who our covert officers are. So do they then go on assignments to really tough places in kind of hard target areas, such as Russia or China or other locations where we need to have officers undercover? It seems like a tremendous own goal. I still can't understand it. And ultimately, this could have done some serious damage for the next generation of CIA talent.
Okay, Mark Polymeropoulos, always sobering, but I appreciate chatting with you every weekend if we can. Thank you much.